he was my only employer in my life. I didn't want to work for a big corporation, so I chose an entrepreneur because I wanted to be an entrepreneur myself. And I was with Algy for 5 years. And after that, I really didn't want to work for anybody else because I didn't think anybody else would be as amusing. And it's very important when young people now ask me what they want to do, and they say, I want to do this, I want to do that. They don't ask from who or for who should I work, and what are the things which they ought to look out for. When they say, I'm going to be hardworking, I'm going to be obsequious, I'm going to be all that. But I think at the end of the day, you have to enjoy yourself. I think you've got to laugh, and there was certainly a lot of laughter. And Algy is one of the funniest men in Britain. I can tell you, is not David Williams, is not Michael McIntyre, is Algy Cluff. In fact, so today, that is going to be revealed as the truth. And anyway, without further ado, I want Algy to tell his story, because it is a remarkable story, and I will be giggling quite a lot, because I know some of the background, I know most of the background, and I was involved with them, and there were hilarious moments, and not the kind of career which could be described as a normal, but it was wonderful, as a result of which, on the first day, when my first arrival for work at Algy, I was flown off that morning to an oil rig in the North Sea to have lunch. So that's the kind of coffee boy in an office experience which you don't normally have. And then we went to Tasmania, that Demon's Land, on that place, and Australia, Zimbabwe, Chile, Easter Island, very exotic places, and I was able to help drill, I think, 8 totally dry wells off the coast of China. So anyway, that is a story in itself to be told, and is a preamble to Algy's book, which I hope will come out soon, because it will be a bestseller. So will you please join me first of all in welcoming Algy Cluff.
I'd forgotten about Van Diemen's Land. I was very jealous when we were in a hotel. David and I, a large Australian farmer, came up and asked him to dance.
It was at a place called Bern. It was Bern, yes.
It plays into machine.
Yes.
Referral machine. Well, look, I think I was asked to talk up until 1980, and my entrepreneurial life started in the army, which is rather.
Yeah.
My entrepreneurial life actually started in the army. I made some money in the army, which I'm not supposed to do. I was in Borneo at the end of my military career, Cyprus and West Africa, and I wound up in the Guard Squadron of the SAS in some forgotten war in Borneo, where legend has it, the white man is supposed to discover the tribe. In our case, the tribe discovered us. It was beautiful. We were lurching around the jungle and clue what we were doing. And this tribe is called the Punans, very aptly named, I might say. Upwind of them. I remember the only thing we really remember about was that they, I, like David, was quite a smoker in those days. There was no tobacco in the jungle. And so I'd sit around smoking with them. They wrapped these leaves, and it wasn't until I left the army a year later, went back to my first party in was called Swinging London in those days. It was also something like this. I thought, Christ, there's a familiar smell. I was smoking marijuana on the Manchester service. I didn't know what it was. Anyway, we were released from the jungle to go on leave from time to time, and always to Singapore, where at 3 o'clock in the morning, one day in 1965 must have been, I met at a bar a planter. In those days, all the rubber plantations and the palm oil plantations in Malaysia were colonial. They were all owned by British and French companies. This chap was called Charles Letts, who was David Stewart, and he died at the young age of 94. And we became friends, and he explained to me during the course of the evening that the London stock market did not understand how to value plantation companies. They valued them on their earnings, which were negligible, but in fact, by reason of the fact they were all around the conurbations, and Malaysia was about to get into gear, they were actually property companies. No one realized. So you would pay 1p for a share in Hollis Mango rubber plantation, and get 99p of free property. So this struck me. I knew nothing of anything the army. So I wrote to my father in the jungle. Had a very nice father. I was only a child, so I realized when I was 5 years old that if I murdered somebody, it sounded weird at my time. There wasn't anything I could do wrong. So I said to him, Dad, look, I think I want something here. Why don't you buy some of these? He's quite a rich man. Why don't you buy some of these plantation shares? And so he did. Instead of watching the enemy, I was watching a ticket tape machine, seeing what was going on the stock market. Charles Letts was correct, and it was a great sort of reassessment of the values of these plantation companies. And my father made a lot of money, relatively speaking, and he gave me the profit. I left the army. How wise of that it was of it, because it meant I didn't have a job, to find a job. So I then stood for Parliament in 1966, general election here in Britain. I wouldn't do that again. That was the one. Those are unenjoyable experience. And then I went to America, New York. Well, I was working. There was a bank called the Ironing Bank, which we used to call the Ironing Bank and Country Club in London. My father had his money in this bank, so it was managed by the bank. So I was attached to the Ironing Bank. I was very spoiled. I spoiled myself for this money that my father had given me. I was thoroughly obnoxious. I stayed in a suite in the Savoy, a huge Mark 10 Jaguar car. I used to drive his car and arrive at work at 10:30 in the morning. Then a jerk to play backgammon in the Contango Club in Throckmorton Street. But the only thing I can remember doing, we were once asked, the bank was thinking of buying a mail order company called Headquarters and General, whose office was in High Holborn, and I drove the team that was sent to value this business in my Jaguar. So I was parking in those days, parking in front of the head office company. There's a little boy having a pee on the front steps. So I said, maybe this guy knows something we don't know. They said, no. They went and bought it. And the little boy was absolutely right. He was completely wrong. So then I then calculated gross redemption yields. Wasn't my scene at all. I said, look, I can't stand this. And we knew John Lindsay, who was well known in those days. He was the mayor of New York. I went off to New York representing the Algy Bank. And total carbon smell about the Algy Bank. I was attached to speech writing staff, believe it or not. I knew in America my life before. I was on the speech writing staff when Rockefeller was running for re-election as governor of New York State in 1966. And legend has it, I read the speech which lost the election for Congressman Woody Kingman. And I was sacked. The only job I really ever had. And I came back to London and pondering what to do. I read in the newspapers the British government was inviting applications for North Sea oil licenses. And this was just at the point where in Holland they discovered the Prudential gas field, a huge gas field. And in Norway, Americans Phillips had discovered the Edifits field, the first big oil field in the North Sea. And it took them 10 dry holes. They had the guts to carry on with Vincent and the world was there. So it became apparent to the industry that the North Sea was going to be a huge oil-producing province. So they then announced a round of licensing, 450 blocks, as they're called, 45 square kilometers each. And I sort of read the small print, and it astonished me that they were not going to auction these blocks, they were going to release them on, as they still do, on what's called a discretionary system, i.e. they're awarded at the discretion of the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State attaches a worth of them to the blocks. And that system, I have to say, has worked very well. Before the discretionary awards were made, however, because the press made a brouhaha about the fact they weren't auctioned licenses off, they decided to auction 15 as an experiment. When I was in New York, I met socially an individual called Chris Derham, who worked for Amica and knew North Sea geology. And when I got back, when I made this decision to apply for some licenses, I asked him to come over to London, and cut a long story short. He put on a Connaught hotel for a week, and he provided a kind of technical sort of bias. I knew nothing about the industry at all. And in our lunacy, we decided in order to convey to the Ministry of Fuel and Power, as it was then, that we were financially strong, we would bid one of these blocks at the auction. Actually, we bid £2.7 million, I remember very well, which we haven't got, for a block, which my friend Chris Derham was convinced Amico or Conoco or BP would bid 10 to 20 million pounds for. Chris, ran a company called Sharon's World Petroleum. I quickly realised that there's more ground there as a name of the company, the smaller it is, two geriatrics. Anyway, we engaged in this mad plan. The bids for these blocks were opened, great ceremony in Millbank, State Loss Information. I sat behind Getty, getting away from Mum, and these envelopes were opened by Angus Beckett, who was a celebrated civil servant of great probity and integrity, and not much common sense. They didn't ask for any evidence. You've got any money? So the first bid for the block, we had bid £2.7 million. It was 35,000. Anyway, we saw edging towards the door and set off to Heathrow Airport. And thankfully, it was I think Shell did £11 million for this block. So we completely frauded and they persuaded the Ministry of Food and Power. We had £2.7 million, so we had got anything. So that did us no harm in the submission we made to the for the remaining block system. We decided to apply for 20 blocks in the hope we might get one, like staying on the stock exchange. And we went in to make our presentation, rather nervously, Dale and myself, to Angus Beckett. And he said, we might not rewrite our application for you. So I thought, well, we're on something here. And he took a great fancy to us. He was very concerned the lack of entrepreneurial issues exhibited by British companies, in particular, not one single individual, or one FBP or Shell or Burma, big company benefit, to go to City of London, ask for money to start new oil companies. Every day, when someone leaves Texaco or whatever it is, and starts a new oil company, there are 30,000 oil companies in America. But not one single individual, which is, I mean, suited us fine, I'm not complaining, but and there was a sort of kind of animus against entrepreneurial activity in those days. Universities actually discouraged their brighter pupils going into business or starting businesses. And that's a very unfortunate episode for Britain, but not for me, because there's very little British competition apart from the majors. Chris Davis' task was to conduct the technical part. Mine was to try and seduce Angus Beckett's wife. So we have a lovely lady, Mrs. Beckett, and we took her to dinner and this was a club in those days called the Claremont Club, which was very sort of flash. And so I had a girlfriend and by those things you dread, turned out to be great success. And after we finished, she said, "Is there a nightclub around here?" So there was a nightclub for Annabelle's underneath it, and so we went down to Annabelle's, and I steered this enormous lady around like a sort of huge ship around the dance floor, and he told me subsequently, he said that whenever he got home in the evening, she would say, "You're going to Algy a block yet? I'm not getting your dinner." She's my secret weapon. There's a terrible fellow called Geoffrey Keating, who worked at BP. I think I have to be careful about making politically incorrect jokes, but it takes a private territory now. We used to call BP British Petrobras. And he spotted us going into Annabelle's. He was sort of kind of PR man for BP. And when I got the bill at the end of dinner, Headway said, "Oh, Mr. Keating has paid the bill." At which point Mrs. Beckett said, "Not that dreadful man Keating." Said, "Didn't advance BP's call very much." He was an egregious figure, more than some other time. Anyhow, so as I said, we applied for these licenses, and we thought we might get one. And these, there's not much ceremony attending to the award of licenses in Britain. In fact, they arrived by third-class post, the wrong address. I had a death threat from the IRA years ago, that arrived at the wrong address. Somebody 3 doors up, I got a letter for you. A death threat. Anyway, on Monday we got this envelope saying there's Secretary of State is graciously inclined to offer you block XY. So we did cartwheels, and champagne, and on Tuesday, another one on Wednesday, another one on Thursday, another one on Friday. we got the whole lot, every block we applied for. And so our euphoria turned into complete panic. And so, how on earth we were going to fund all this? And what we didn't realise was that it's like agriculture in the North Sea, and an acre of the North Sea is valued by the oil industry. That's how respected it is judged to be. Good well, they didn't also an acre of nothing. So we were, in terms of North Sea acreage, sort of millionaires overnight, and well, starting experience. And then I was having dinner, something called Rupert Hamburg, who was a friend of David's, and this is 1969, I suppose, and the chap there was working for the Barons, and he said, this is very exciting, bang on another, how rich we were, so how exciting this was, and he said, well, come to Barons and meet us, because we had been sitting, as is indeed the rest of the city, waiting for these entrepreneurs to come to us and raise money for the North Sea. No one came. So, come on, sorry, short, Barry's teamed up with us and raised the money. We, Trans World Trade had 7% of the application, and we had 30%. And we spent £1 million buying seismic. Sensible judgment as to where we were going to drill our first well. I remember the entire cost of drilling 21-1, which is the first well we drilled, which discovered the Buckingham field. You're not supposed to find oil in your first well. In those days, there were heady days in the North Sea, George and so the total cost of that discovery hole was £650,000, which was the day cost of a rig until the oil price fell some months ago. Just to give you an idea of the chronic cost inflation which has affected the world in the last 30 years. Anyway, that was an amazing experience to discover oil on our first hole. Very deep oil column, 800 meters, so we were assuming in Fortune magazine, so I was likely to be the richest man in the world or something. Unfortunately, it was a deep oil column, quite narrow. Anyway, it was a commercial one too. And then this sort of, these happy days were changed by reason of the Labour government coming to power. And the introduction of the British National Oil Corporation, the State Oil Corporation, BNOC, it's called. It became a very different picture indeed, and the banks became very cautious about lending money to anything other than major oil companies. So it became quite difficult. And I, as I said, negotiating what the British National Oil Corporation decided to do was to what they call participation negotiations, which included imposing a civil servant on the operating committee of all the oil companies who had discovered the North Sea, which I remember saying at the time was rather like asking the camp commandant, the Japanese prisoner of war camp, to attend in prisoners escaping committee meetings. We had to have dummy meetings. It was the most chronic waste of executive time you can imagine. She did absolutely nothing. And Mrs. Thatcher abolished it the first week she was in office, but he did. And it was rather embarrassing to be with American partners negotiating against our own government, who were being so coercive and maladroit, frankly. So then British Petrobras came along and bid for us, so I wasn't too rude about it. And we were released from the North Sea. And my friends, I put all of my friends into this company, and they invested about £50,000. They all worked altogether £1 million each, which in the space of about 2 years. So it was spectacular. £1 million in 1977, it was a serious amount of money. None said thank you. Got to think of it. At the same 1980, also, the Chinese government announced that they were going to invite applications from the international private sector to explore oil off the coast of China. I think I'm right in saying that was the first time the Cultural Revolution they decided to treat with the private sector, oil industry, because they didn't have the offshore technology. So there was a scramble for these licenses. The received opinion was that the Pearl River, the Yellow River, with great perfect criteria for applied for the generation of hydrocarbons, which indeed there were, but there was one thing missing, which was a cap rock, which to seal the oil in the reservoirs, the oil that actually dispersed, so it wasn't there in commercial quantities of that. It was at that time the biggest expenditure of exploration money in the history of the oil industry. BP drilled $10 million. So we managed to, amazingly, we worked ourselves off. By this time, David almost joined us, and I, again, pondering how to finance this, decided to raise money locally in Hong Kong, so a company called Cluff Hong Kong, and the money for Cluff Hong Kong was subscribed by a number of big homes in Hong Kong, including the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, as it was called then. I remember one of the first meetings I went to with the Chinese National Offshore Oil Corporation, and Snoop. They'd done their sort of homework, and on the wall was a big chart of the capital structure of Cluff Oil and Cluff Oil Hong Kong, and they made one mild mistake. It appears in this chart not that the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank owned 30% of Cluff Oil Hong Kong. It was Cluff Oil owned 30% of the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. I wonder why we were treated with such indifference and respect. So I didn't disabuse them of this. This fantasy there. I think that must have contributed to the fact we got, again, a successful money, which is going to be the licenses, but we also referred as operators too, which I'm considering we're competing with Gulf and BP and so on and so forth. I'd like to tell you a story about what the governor of Hong Kong, what I said about the governor of Hong Kong, the lady's present, so I'm not a bit long. Anyway, I was introduced and he said, this is Mr. Clark, he's looking for oil off the coast of China. There's a fellow Lord Macleod, who's about a foot taller than me. He said, on his nose, he said, there is no oil off the coast of China. I thought, stupid, I would say the word I used. He's actually right. At all. Should have listened to him. Well, and they were all dry holes, but my goodness, we had fun. Of course, the Hongs. And we didn't discover oil in China, we discovered money in Hong Kong. So that was the end of the first episode of my long entrepreneurial story. Because in 1980, I went off to Africa, where I spent 30 years in the gold business primarily, and returned to the North Sea, incredibly, 3 years ago. My headmaster said to me once, he said, all the best things wind up where they started when he was talking about. Now I know. So I'm back in the North Sea, amazing. And the North Sea still has a lot to offer. A lot of oil found. It's been abandoned by the majors, but disgracefully to find more oil and gas there. So maybe that's a spectrum more than half an hour. Very well spectrum.
Yes, thank you, Algy. I mean, you might just mention the number. As you know, the oil blocks were given away in their numbers. I mean, in North Sea, you said the first oil you drilled was 21-1. A block is usually represented by two numbers. And in China, I remember the first one you were offered in the South China Sea, 22, which in Chinese is and
I thought this joke cracked up. What's the matter with this?
And I've got a copy of the letter here which I had, which you wouldn't believe.
I just found it last week.
Yeah, from the China National Offshore Oil Corporation, which says to refer to the letter and the attached copy, and it's a letter signed by the Vice President from the China National Oil Corporation in 1991, and my initials there, so I saw it at the time. Anyway, it's addressed to Mr. J.G. Cluff. Instead of saying Chairman of Cluff Oil PLC, it says China. J.G. Cluff.
It's true.
China. Cluff Oil PLC.
I do remember, just going back to the lack of ceremony which was attended at the water licenses in the UK. The complete reverse applied in China, because Farmer were waiting for a buffet with the wrong address. I was asked for a banquet in the great hall of the people. 1,000 people I'd never seen before or since. It was presided over by the oil minister, who was very critical, Mr. Tang. And there were speeches and toasts, and we stayed at the Diary Tower, stayed guest house, and driven around with a red flag limousine, and there was Royce and so on and so forth. Anyway, as we were walking down these steps after this dinner, I had a chap working with me called Frank Steele, who'd been in MI5. He said, I said, you know, Frank, it's amazing. Last we found a country that really appreciates foreign investment. And he said, well, I'm going to say sure about you. 3 weeks later, we got a letter, which was a bill of $50,000 the bank had given us the passes.
Oh well, but in the world today, where oil is regarded as a bit of a dirty word because of the consciousness of environment, in one way, there's the North Sea oil coming back. I mean, presumably the days of pioneer days of oil exploration are long since gone, or is it, am I imagining?
Well, no, I mean, I think the position which this country, its specific faces now, is that notwithstanding its all our ambition to be as clean as we possibly can, the fact is that there are coal-fired power stations in the UK, which there are 30, pay a carbon emissions tax, 25 pounds a tonne, which is 6 times higher than emission tax payable anywhere else in Europe. These power stations are all foreign-owned, incidentally, and they're all starting to close down, rather surprising, including Longyannet, which is the only power station in Scotland, and its Spanish owners have advised the Scottish government that would close down in March next year, taking 40% of the total electricity generating capacity out of Scotland. Disaster, this one. The same thing would apply in the UK, a slightly longer period. It's not built to. So we have nothing to replace this. We are facing a very serious energy situation, I should say, by 2017. And the renewables, desirable that they might be in some people's view, not in a lot of others, are not going to even remotely fill that gap. There's been no coherent thinking, particularly the coalition government, particularly guilty. There were two Liberal Democrats, Secretary of State, David and Hugh, who focused entirely on renewables, which produce nothing really on the onshore ones. They are in the process now of building the biggest offshore wind farm in the world off the Dogger Bank in the southern North Sea. This is sheer lunacy. It is costing us a £5 billion subsidy, and it is sanitizing geology, which the oil industry believes will contain trillions and trillions of cubic feet of gas, which the oil industry will discover entirely at its own cost without any subsidy at all. So that's an example of the incoherence of our energy policy. So the North Sea is a very valuable asset still to us, in particular the southern North Sea, where with the improvements in technology and particularly seismology, it's become apparent there are other horizons, particularly the Zegstein formation, which could produce huge quantities of gas from us. There's a lot of energy there from the North Sea, which is growing rapidly. I've got 11 blocks in the southern North Sea, including a gas discovery called the Lisbon Field, which was discovered not by us, but by Germans about 25 years ago. And there's lots of gas in it. But in those days, they understood fracking. The reservoirs were too tight to flow gas. And now that fracking is this new technique, we believe we have a major gas field there. We're putting 2 production wells next year. I was under this notion that around the coast of the UK, there's Britain is blessed by having these huge seams of coal. In fact, they extend from Scotland to Denmark in some cases. When we were drilling for oil in the 1970s, to our disgust, we often drilled through these thick seams of coal. And I remember an American oil man saying to me on the oil rig, as we were looking at the rigs, the blocks, he said, you know, there's enough coal here to keep Europe, let alone Britain, going 2,000 years. And now you have this technology called underground gasify, effectively, convert the coal into gas. And there's a vast amount of energy available to the UK in particular. I wouldn't really put us here. But anything new, of course, is very difficult. Time I spent the last 2 years arguing the case for converting this coal into gas, and the environmental organizations, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, and many more of them, are just, notwithstanding the science, they are totally opposed to fossil fuel, nonsense, coal, oil. And they're very powerful. They're very well funded by Europe. They can hire the best QCs, and for as long as Britain maintains its present planning system, which requires planning to be at the discretion of the locally elected officials, we're not going to get anywhere with fracking onshore or anything else offshore. It takes 7 years to get a no from a planning tribunal here. And it's quite wrong in the case of something which is of the national interest to enable 9 councillors in Blackpool to determine the future of this country. That, in my view, I'm surprised to hear, I believe should be brought into, should be a national issue, and planning for national natural resources should be a matter for central government. And that should take no more than 6 months or a year to get approved. The fracking, which is on the shale business here, is another source of energy. It's nothing like as big as it's been talked up by David Cameron made a most ill-advised speech about 2 years ago. He said that Britain's problem has now been solved by the reason of all the shale gas that is present in the UK. Well, it just isn't the deliverability of his homework. Trying to offer the planning issue, even if you start drilling for shale tomorrow, I do doubt whether it's going to make any major impression, even a minor impression on our citizens.
Are there, do you notice, young people, young entrepreneurs nowadays getting into and trying to understand what it all means to get into the oil business or exploration in particular? I mean,
Well,
do you see lots of young enthusiastic people jumping into the prospect of getting involved?
well, people are trying to get out of it, unfortunately, because it's almost impossible to raise exploration money now. I mean, there are a lot more entrepreneurs now, and there are a lot of very successful entrepreneurs in the North Sea, British as well as Americans. But it's a very tough call now, and as I said, the word exploration sends a shudder down the spine of professional investors.
Because it costs so much money to do your seismic or drill the well, and then even if there's oil, it might not be.
Even although the daily rate for renting a rig is high, it still rents a lot of these fields marginal. So this can be solved by the Chancellor Exchequer, the stroke of a pen, but he seems to be completely oblivious. He was a fishing port 35 years ago. There'll be a fishing port again quite soon. There were 6 exploration holes drilled in the North Sea over the last 12 months, whereas the Norwegians, I'm trying to draw George Osborne's attention to this, the Norwegian government introduced an 80% rebate on the cost of an exploration hole. So that has galvanized exploration in Norway. It's cost the Norwegian Exchequer $4 billion, resulted in $100 billion worth of oil being discovered. Whereas, Osborne doesn't trigger off another exploration.
Well, you get 80% rebate, we don't find oil.
They have to approve that. Geologists have to approve where you're going to drill for it. But you effectively borrow money from the bank to drill them.
Would they like to ask a question? Yes, ladies first, and then you.
Do you find any attractiveness in investing in renewable energy instead? Is it something that would bring any similar profit as?
Well, I don't know. It's just not our business. I have no objection to it. I think it's been again, well, very badly handled. I mean, you go to Cumbria. When Chris Hewitt was the Secretary of Energy, under an ordering council, so there was no, he ignored all this planning which I've been talking about. I imposed hundreds of these wind farms times. Destroy the countryside there without really making any dramatic impact on our energy requirements. And I think obviously read the new Secretary, Amber Rudd, started stopping these planning approvals for onshore wind farms. We need a mix. You know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have renewable energy. Of course not. Very foolishly to say. But everything has to play its part.
Algy, firstly, a huge thank you for a hugely anecdote-filled lecture, which was quite extraordinary. Two questions. The first is just your own sense about the future of the oil price and where it's going to go over the next 2 to 5 years, and what your own estimates are on that. And secondly, I think you said you've been twice involved in China. Obviously, or was it just once? I wasn't clear. And so, what was your second experience?
Well, I think this is a very good moment for an entrepreneur to get into the industry in my opinion. You get licenses on terms which we've never got for the last 30, 40 years. These cash premiums have been abandoned by African countries and so on. So I think it's a very good license. Even they probably couldn't afford to raise the money, we couldn't raise the money to drill them. Establish a license position. As to where the price is going to go, I think it looks sort of bottomed out to me, and it's increasing view, notwithstanding Iran being the wild card, Saudi Arabia can't sustain this situation any longer, and the cartel will have to revive. So we are presently talking to our bankers about borrowing money to buy production. We think it's a very good manner to buy cash flow, because nearly all these companies are either heavily worried or overcommitted, and it's quite manifest in the share price. It's just about every mining oil company dropped by 90%, quite dramatic, the evaporation of value. No, I had one excursion to China, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but after that banquet we had to pay for, I thought, well,
how about the oil price? I mean, what was it today?
Well, that's 48.
When it was, the peak was what?
120.
And you don't think it will go back up?
I do, I think, not as dizzy heights, I think it's done. I mean, they've done a ruthless job, the Saudis. Mind you, taking on the American shell, the Americans are, whatever you might feel, Americans are very efficient. They've reorganized their shell industry so that few of the lesser companies have gone out of business. They were destroyed in American shell.
How does doing business in the UK now compare with doing business in the UK in the late 1960s?
Well, I was at Ouagadougou Airport, Burkina Faso, 3.5 years
Upper
ago.
Volta,
Upper Volta. No, it wasn't. 3 years ago. And at midnight, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? I must be mad. I'm 70 years old, or rather 70 years old. I'll go back to Britain and revisit the North Sea. I'm not going back to Upper Volta. I can tell you the bureaucracy in the Department of Energy and Climate Change makes you weep. I think, again, this government is trying to get a grip that it's become completely dysfunctional and heartbreaking, really, as how hopeless and shambolic.
But isn't it?
Doing business, generally speaking, is probably a lot better, and I'm just talking specifically about my own business, which is in the grip. When we applied for those licenses originally, and we administered fuel and power, there were 5 civil servants. There are now about 5,000 doing the same job.
But isn't it because it is politically correct and imperative for the government to appear to be standing on the side of renewable energy and not argue about dirty words like oil.
I thought the question was, well, how does doing business compare to?
I know, but I mean, my question was that now the complications and so forth, isn't that motivated by the fact that government just want to go out of their way to make sure that they are seen to be trying to promote renewable energy and trying to do down dirty substances?
Yes, yes. And they are, when they go to the Paris conference in November or December, they will be saying we will close our entire coal-fired business down by 2025. But they haven't got any plans what to do with the meantime.
Try the nuclear.
Well,
Question.
Well, I mean, it's been a very long journey, but nowadays you've gone back to the North Sea. How about, I mean, the intervening years when you have not mentioned the gold and exploration? You've gone to Australia, Africa, even South America. Are you disillusioned that you might have wasted, if that's the right word, all those years? Do you regret? And might you have done something else?
well, no, it was my decision to go to Africa. I never regretted it. We had a marvelous time there for 30 years. It was very difficult because it was possible to raise money in the City of London to invest in Africa. And the new African governments, they were in Kuwait, and they didn't want to explain the whole process of gold loans and how the whole process of gold business worked. So I said most of my time actually educating central bank governors and ministers about this very complicated hedging systems and so on, which are fundamental for the gold business. But we had a marvelous time, I can tell you, in those pioneering days. We actually discovered, I think, 11 gold mines and brought up production 8. And our nemesis was discovering the biggest gold discovery in Africa since the Second World War, which was a Gator mine in Tanzania, where we were taken over as a capitalism, because of that. It was very good in on my CV, not so good, not there in my wallet. But we have some loves, and it's one of my favourite stories about. One of the things I constant, what I can say is bribery and corruption, which I've experienced practically nothing in Africa, I have to say. And as an example of this, I was negotiating to bring $20 million into Zimbabwe in the mid-1980s. And that money was coming from Hong Kong, so not from Europe. And I spent a week negotiating with Dr. Kombo Moyala, who was the governor of the Reserve Bank. And I was slumped in my hotel room on the Saturday evening reading a book, taking a rest and all this. And there's a knock at the door. I opened it, and there was the governor of the Reserve Bank. We were rather fetching in a canary in a tracksuit. And I thought, Christ, he's come for his brown envelope. So he said, sorry, may we resume our negotiations? I had a bunch of ideas. So I said, of course, and he said, may I use the bathroom? Well, big English, I assumed he wanted to answer the coordination. So I said, oh, and now an hour later, he came out having a bath. Fortunately, he's fully dressed. Certainly, I'm not prepared to do with the show. If you want to answer a private organ, this man's a crook on the board. Charming.
But I mean, China is now all over. but China is now all over Africa, proving that there are so many resources that have been left. I mean,
well, the big story, there was a real change. I mean, my first, when I couldn't raise any money, I could help the whole of Africa. Then suddenly, and Africa, from a mining and oil point of view, was an Anglo-Saxon preserve for a century, until, with great velocity, 20 years ago, there starts arriving the Indian business, the Chinese businessmen, and the rest of the Russians. And they're extremely effective and efficient businessmen. I said to the Minister of Mines in Sierra Leone, I said, "Man of interest, why do you keep on referring these Chinese communists to us Europeans?" He said, "I'll tell you why. Not the reason you think, because they make that decision damn sight quicker than you do. You fuck around for months and months. They say, yes, all right." That was very, very interesting. Now, they're not perfect Chinese in Africa by any means, nor is anyone really, but they have galvanized the place. Their tendency to use Chinese labor has rendered them quite unpopular in some parts of the continent. But we have become completely marginal. It's not like we, I mean the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians, and the British. It's curiosity, but I'd say something, there are no Italian or French or Spanish small mining or oil companies for some reason. It's always been dominated by the Anglo-Saxon. Now we have this competition. And we then introduced the Bribery Act, which, talk about the law of unintended consequences, high-minded, I think extremely insulting. It is implicit in the Bribery Act. We have a tendency to be corrupt, which is certainly not the case, and therefore something ought to be done to stop us being corrupt. And the law of unintended consequences is that the non-executive directors of companies are now terrified that they're going to go to prison because someone's handed over a $100 bill to a tractor across the border of Nigeria. And so they're a dead hand on the more entrepreneurial companies. So I mean, it's rather like it's just one of the many thoroughly incompetent sort of tinkering we've done in Britain. The corporate governance is another one. The Cabinet Committee of Australia, Cabinet died the other day, and you think the same Cabinet died. I'm going to dance on his grave. He introduced the Cabinet Committee, followed by the Greenery Committee. What are these things done to achieve? Nothing at all, except a creative industry for the headhunters. And you have these deranged situations now where it is judged to be appropriate or inappropriate for, let's take a major company like Anglo American, for the chairman and the chief executive to be brought in from outside. It's completely insane. The whole point of a chairman and chief executive is they know A, they're in the business, and B, know the people in the business. The phone is, how to know what they're doing, how to don't know what they're doing, so on and so forth. So you've had Anglo American as a case in point, chairman, nothing about the oil industry, about the mining industry, the last chairman, and he appointed an American lady who knew practically nothing about the mining industry, certainly nothing about Africa in her life, with disastrous consequences. And that sends out terrible signals to the investing community. You can't find anyone in the company who's good enough to be the chief executive or the chairman, and the signals to the company, people in the company themselves. What am I doing here if I'll never get a top job? Extremely unhealthy. So all this meddling is, I don't know what's achieved, nothing. And also I think this was a very unattractive notion that there's something unhealthy about cronyism, and that therefore boards of directors should be adversarial. It's precisely when boards of directors get adversarial, the executives get secretive, and that's where the trouble starts. Whereas if, I'm not promoting the idea of having all your friends on the board of directors, but if you serve together in difficult circumstances for 5 years or more, you become friends. I mean, if you don't become friends, there's something wrong. And you let your friends down last of all. The best discipline I ever had was having people like, for example, Sir David Tang, the chairman of Tobacco, on my board. I'd rather have died. I mean, he's a great friend of mine, but I'd rather have died than embarrass him. Far better discipline than anything else. They can't see that at all.
Sorry, guys. So Mark Moody Stewart, all in three, you'll be discreet, I'll be less discreet. All in three moved into resources of Anglo-American. You likewise have been on the resources and the oil side. So there's obviously quite a lot of crossover between those two industries, and yet you don't think
Which never worked.
Effective.
Never worked, of course. The oil industry moved into the mining business 25 years ago, so disastrous consequences. BP bought copper companies all over the place, and they've sold them all on quite. And the disciplines are similar, but the other thing, I'm the chairman of BP, I think against BP, totally invisible, Swedish chemist, barely speak English. And when a big scandal occurred, totally invisible. Why can't they find somebody in BP? Chair BP.
Anyway, Algy Cluff, thank you very much. It's been a fascinating tale and very revealing and certainly amusing. And I want you all to join me in thanking Algy Cluff for coming.